Welcome to the November 23rd Eclipse OpenJ9 community call. As always, please add your name and affiliation to the list of attendees just so we have some idea of who's been joining. And I'll pause here for a minute if there's anything that anyone would like to add to the agenda that's not already there. If something comes up along the way, chime in. We'll add it in the appropriate point, or feel free to tag things into the agenda in the Any Other Business section. We do have a lightning talk scheduled for today. Renfei, are you ready with that?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, if you want to take over screen sharing that.
Sure. Yeah, can you see my screen right now?
Yes, now we can.
Okay. So hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk about a newly added feature in TKG, the dynamic compilation. I guess most people are familiar with the build list idea. It is a comma separated path we provide in the environment variable before the test to limit the test folders to compile. However, it will get quite tricky from time to time. For example, a command line test here. We not only need to provide the command line test folder itself, we also need to provide the command line test resource folder, the command line test tools folder, and what's even worse is if the test depends on some other folders to compile. You need to take a look at the build.xml file and figure out what dependent folder you need to provide in the build list environment variable. So sometimes we notice that people just don't bother to find out this information, and in that way it causes a lot of time wasted to compile everything. So how do we reduce the effort and save some time here? We actually added the dependencies in the build.xml file in each test layer. So now if you want to just run this command line tester test, you just need to provide the folder to the test itself. And all the other dependencies should be handled automatically. And on the other hand, if you create a new test folder, please make sure that you add the dependencies in your build.xml. There are lots of examples that you can find in the other test folders. How do we even more simplify the build list process? So we make it auto-generated based on your target, JDK version, info, and other information you provided. So for example, in your local environment, you just need to do export. Yeah, after you do export test JDK home, then you just need to do export dynamic underscore compile equals to true. And you don't need to do make compile. You just go directly to make a test target. And it will figure out what test folder it needs to compile and do the compilation. And after that, it will run the test for you. It also works for a group of tests such as make sanity. So I can show a quick demo on my local environment here. Yeah. So now we first do this, and we just go directly to the test. So first it will compile the TKG tools that needed, and it will generate a list of tests that needs to compile, then compile the test, and then run the test now. So it finished really quick. You don't need to care about what test folder you need to compile anymore. And it's the same story on a Jenkins grinder. So we have this feature added to both Adoptium Jenkins and OpenJ9 Jenkins, and also the kernel Jenkins. So what you need to do is choose build with parameters and choose the information you need. And after that, you can leave the build list to empty, or you can put any build list you want. So the dynamic compile will actually further down to limit the build list based on your input as well. But for now, let's say I just keep it blank. and I click on the dynamic compile, and I choose the target I want to run, and that's it. So from my previous run, we can see the same command like tester test. It just take about a minute to finish. The compilation is really quick, and all the time it takes is for the testing. So this feature can be used for the nightly build as well. So we are trying to add this feature to the nightly parallel build. Since each parallel runner gets a subset of a test group, so by compiling the subset of test only, it will largely reduce the compile time for the nightly build as well. So yeah, that's it for my lightning talk today. Is there any questions?
Not a question, but I have used this feature and it works great and does speed things up considerably. So thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing.
So why would we ever want to turn this dynamic compile off? Are there any downsides to using it?
For functional test, I don't think there are any downside. The only thing is there are some system tests. I'm not sure if the build.xml are configured correctly. Other than that, some like external test, sometimes we need to download a large amount of resource from other third-party locations. So I'm not sure if it will interfere in that case. But normally, I think whenever I don't think there's any particular downside till now. Yeah.
I think in summary, what we try to do in the future is make the dynamic compilation as a default. Right now, there's still some group of tests that we need to validate whether this works 100%. But for people that use functional tests and an OpenJDK test, I guess that should be a default option that you do in the grinder. So yeah. This is why that at this point is still option for the user, but in the future, the plan is to make it as a default.
That's excellent. Great, guys.
Thank you. Actually, I want to add to this a little bit. Oh, by the way, thank you, Renfei, for the great presentation. What I want to add is that if you do specify the build list in the grinder, then we will use the grinder, the value. We will try to identify the test based on the folder that you specified. So that's just something to be aware of, right? So for example, if you say build list equal to functional, and you use the dynamic compilation, and then your target is, say, OpenJDK test, that will not, we will not be able to find the test and the functional folder.
Yes.
That's just something that to keep in mind.
Yeah. So most of the time, if you want to just click on this dynamic compile, you better just leave the build list empty. Yeah. Okay. I will stop sharing now.
Thanks, Renfei.
Yeah.
Pick the sharing back up at this point then. So if there are other lightning talks people would like to give, feel free to reach out to me. We can get them scheduled in any of the upcoming weeks. Take a quick look at the new user-raised issues that have come in since the last one of these calls. Doesn't look like any have come in for the last couple of weeks, so we're in a good state there. Is there anything in this list, though, that needs some discussion today? Based on that silence, I will jump back to our agenda. In the interest of time, we'll skip over the download stats. We'll take a look at the Java 17 release. We're currently blocked on the one item. Do we have an update on that, Toby or Jack?
I'll update on that one. Yeah, we do. So the problem is starting to make a little bit more sense in terms of what's causing the problem, but we don't have a fix just yet. So the issue is some interaction between an escape analysis or a stack allocation optimization and an OSR. When we've done some work to disable escape analysis in certain contexts to try to pin this down, and it's demonstrated that there's definitely an interaction there between EA and OSR that's causing an issue here. The problem seems to be triggered by the JIT inserts these hot code replace guards in the code, and there are optimizations that happen that can eliminate these guards in some contexts when we think that it is safe to do so. And it seems that the removal of some of these guards is causing escape analysis to be fooled in its analysis in some cases. So we need to figure out why that's the case. However, we may be very close to introducing a workaround to this problem that does not impact performance very much and is a relatively low risk change. So we're exploring that front right now. So the workaround would be that if we did introduce so the problem occurs is when one of these guards fail, or if there is some guard that fails, and then we have an OSR transition out of that failed path. The fix would be to prevent these guards from being removed in that case. Or sorry, the fix would be to prevent OSR from occurring in the failed path, and instead like using a dispatch or something like that, like we normally would. So we're exploring that option right now. There is it looks like a fairly logical place in the code where we would need to change in order to do this. We're also looking at whether or not, what the interaction is with method handles here is. We've only seen this problem with Java-lang invoke methods, so we may make that restriction specific to Java-lang invoke methods. But this is just a workaround. This isn't fixing the problem, and the true fix for this problem may be a bit more involved. We have to have performance considerations in mind. There are definitely risks to the quality of the code that we have to be concerned about. So those might be more suitable for a headstream fix rather than a release branch fix. But a workaround, I think, should be safe and not impact performance any at all. So if that, I'm hoping we can have an update on that within the next day or so. We may have a fix within a day for the workaround, and then we can move forward with this. But we need to do a bit more testing with that as well. So ask for more updates in the issue, and we will provide more updates in the issue on this workaround front within the day.
So Daryl, just let me play back the piece I want to clarify. Potentially have a workaround within a day. Is that then needs some additional performance testing and validation and review and whatnot? So we're talking a day plus.
I think a day to get the code written, or at least get the test written and internally reviewed by people that are familiar with that code. Yeah, and obviously we'll have to go through some build and higher stress testing to exercise this. But yeah, it'll take. Yeah, we'll have hopefully we'll have a fix within a day, and it'll be reviewed by those that are familiar with the OSR and inlining code.
Okay, so we're still looking, conservatively at least a week until we're ready to release. Yes. I mean, I guess it depends on when the testing can begin, right? Like we'll do our own internal testing on it. That could take maybe
a day. So if we got a fix in by, let's say, tomorrow morning, we did testing, that'll be Thursday morning. By the time, let's say, that testing is complete, that might mean that we're in a position where we can start the final build for 29.1 at that point in testing.
Pete, how much time would you need once we got this fix in to get through the actual release builds?
So we have a problem with our UNB machines right now, and we can't run any testing on Mac, Linux, or some other platform. So until that's fixed, we can't get full builds through.
Linux.
Do we have an idea of how long until that's fixed?
Not really. We don't know what the problem is yet. It seems to be a network problem. Things are running too slow over the network.
We could increase the timeout on that copy artifact step that's timing out. That might get us through.
Just worry that's going to be a cascade of changes. Then might hit other timeouts. And
Is Lan on the call? Yes.
Yeah.
Is there more? Oh, maybe we should follow up afterwards. But I was gonna say, is there more copying after that one? I can follow up with her afterwards and see if there's a workaround in the meantime.
so we already cache the JVMs locally to UNB. I wonder if we could cache these other artifacts locally to UNB to avoid this type of problem.
Yeah, I thought about that. It's a little bit different because these are a different type of step that's doing a copy artifact from a Jenkins build. So we'd have to think about that. But I mean, it's only 60 megs and it's timing out after an hour, so that's a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the dependency jars, right?
Yep.
Those are copied from the Jenkins master.
Yep. Do you know if that's the last sort of dependency pull, or is there more that happen for other things?
Depends on different tests we pull into. We're actually doing different jars. So there's a group for system test, and then there's a different group for functional test.
Right. The system one looks smaller.
Does it make sense, Adam, Lan, to connect after this call in a smaller group and see if there's pieces of that can be cached and to work through the details on that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Just curious about one thing. The Jenkins master that we're getting the artifacts from, is that the OpenJ9 Jenkins, or is that something at Adoptium?
OpenJ9 Jenkins.
It depends on which Jenkins you run. So if you run on HYC Jenkins, it will copy from HYC Jenkins. If you run from OpenJ9 Jenkins, then you will get from OpenJ9 Jenkins.
Okay, so it's the OpenJ9 Jenkins, nothing changed there that we know about.
Not that we know of. The artifact size are the same as they were before the weekend. It doesn't seem to be affecting other builds other than UNB, so I think it's the UNB pipe.
Yeah.
Another thing we can try, I don't know whether this is going to help, is to turn off the copying at the beginning. So the mechanism is like we copy it all at once from the job. But if the job doesn't exist, what the code will do is when we get down to the test will try to copy it again. But at that point, it's try to copy from various server though.
Like the origin copies kind of thing.
Yes. So that may cause more problem. Well, if the fundamental issue is the network, then it may have more problem later using that method. Yeah.
Yeah, we can connect after. We still have to. I've only tested from OSU to UNB, so we can test from other places to UNB. But I suspect it won't be any different.
So to get back to the original question, so we're talking about releasing the workaround, not the actual fix, right?
Yeah, I think for JDK 17, just given the potential risk of the change, we would introduce a workaround at this point.
And that workaround could go into the headstream?
The workaround can go into headstream as well. Yeah.
So I think it would be good to go through like a week, wait a week with that change in the headstream and make sure that nothing pops up.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
I don't think we should put something in and run a single build and then think we're good to go out the door.
Yeah. We are having some discussions later on today about the proper fix or how to make advances on the proper fix here. So, but yeah, there shouldn't be any issue with dropping the workaround into the headstream while we do that.
And is the workaround specific to Java 17 or would it affect 8 and 11?
I don't think it would be in protected code, but the situation. So, depending on how the extent of the workaround that we do, like if we make this specific to Java lang invoke methods. Sorry, I'm just thinking about this.
The reason I'm
yes,
asking.
It would. Yeah, it may. Yes, it may have an impact on 8 and 11 as well.
Yeah. So the reason I'm asking is we're about to split the next weekend for our next set of releases. So it might be good to wait until after that split to put this change in, just in case there is some side effect.
I would have said the opposite. It would be better to get it in now to find out if there's some side effect on 8 and 11, because ideally 17 will be ready to ship as part of that release as well.
Yes. I'm just wondering if we should not allow it to go in initially, but do release it after we do the split and test it out in the headstream and then make a decision to actually add it to the release.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we do have time with the 0.30 release, right?
Yeah. Even though we're splitting this weekend, it's not going to go out the door until January. But I suppose either way would be good. If it went in and there was a problem found later, we could remove it or we could fix it again.
To me, I'd rather get it in as early as possible and get the broadest range of testing on it across the different platforms.
The most testing is going to happen on the headstream.
Okay. I'm fine either way too, but we can target getting it into the headstream as soon as we can here this week.
Just as we've now kind of blurred the lines on our release discussions, with the 030 release, are we on schedule to branch on the 27th?
Yeah.
The release plan, we've got 100 open items.
Well, that has never stopped us before. We're going to go ahead and branch on schedule. I don't know that there's any blockers in here.
When I searched the other day, I didn't see anything that had been tagged as a blocker, but wasn't sure if we'd gone through and really done a scrub over this to see what things should be considered blockers or not.
Yeah, if I had seen anything, I would have tagged it. I guess Toby and Daryl are free to identify things as blockers as well. I believe Toby has done a pass and cleared out some things, so the list is now smaller than it used to be last week.
Yeah, I haven't vetted this list yet.
Because that would be good to have a pass over that before we do the split to make sure that there's nothing in there that's overly concerning about needing to be in before we split. So that's never, though, Pete, as you said, it's never stopped us before.
Yeah, and there's nothing stopping us continuing to put in changes after the split. Just maybe a little more eyes on to make sure that the changes going in are good changes. I think the harder deadline would be the M2 date.
Yeah, especially as we run into holiday season. So. Is there anything else on the 0.29 or 9.1 or 0.30 release? And I will ask also about the 0.31 Java 18 status. Have we unblocked builds, or are we still just blocked on the UMB machine issues?
Yeah, we're just blocked on UNB as far as I know. JEP 416 was enabled last week, thanks Jason. And then I was just verifying, but we can cross out the last thing in the list. Jason just closed that.
Strikeout is on here. And
I think the platforms that are working look fine. So we'd be able to accept the latest content if we had the machines working.
Okay, that's good. Anything else to discuss on the 0.31 release?
Let's take a quick peek to see if anything new is showing up. There is a schedule now. So the code split will be the 9th of December. There haven't been any other JEPs added recently, but there's still some time.
Yeah, so there are a couple of draft JEPs related to Loom. I'm not sure if these will make it or not. I think on the odd chance that it might make it, I'd like to take a proactive stance and get a head start on that work. What we're seeing is that there is a lot of changes to Java-lang thread being added, and we're currently investigating if we can start using OpenJDK Java-lang thread. So I think if we were able to make this change, then it's going to greatly simplify the work we have to do for Loom. So if off the top of your head you know of any major blockers that will hamper us from doing this, please let us know.
I'm not sure how major they are, but Thread and Thread Group are involved in OpenJ9 startup. So there is some OpenJ9 specific stuff in there, and if we don't have that, we're going to have to put it elsewhere and figure out how to do that startup work. So there is some work to do.
Yeah.
I did
There's
a quick
also-
try on the JDK 17, like compile seems to pass, but hang during the build. So definitely need lots of work to make it work for the using RI Line thread and the thread group as well.
Yeah, I think Thread is the entry point for booting. And
Yeah.
so if we don't have our boot code in Thread, we'd have to do that boot work a different way.
Basically, now I try to patch in OpenJDK code with J9 version, but yeah, there are lots of native involved as well. They are kind of synchronized and working together with the Java code.
Yeah, I think the other thing to watch with the thread code is thread states. I think we track them differently than the OpenJDK code does. So there definitely some work needed there to patch up or paper over the difference.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, this is something we'll continue to look at.
And as we move down, is there an update from the adopt group? Skip over that because I don't see Shelley on the call. Adam, is there an update on infrastructure beyond what we've covered already?
Not really. The UNB thing is the big thing right now. We are starting to set up some AX machines at OSU. This will be the replacement for the IBM garage shutting down. Hopefully we can get one set up and tested, and then they can clone it out for us. That's about it.
Thanks, Adam. I don't see Devin on the call, so we'll skip over the CMake work. Marius, is there any update on JIT server? See Marius on the call either, so I guess we'll skip that. MicroJIT meeting.
December 2nd should be the new one.
Thank you. Will be any update on the snapshot restore efforts?
The progress on expanding the API is ongoing. So the next thing will be to add the ability for users to register hooks. And then following that, we will start adding functionality to ensure that the usage of these hooks don't cause deadlocks. I'll be doing a presentation, a CASCOM presentation tomorrow at 4 p.m. Just describing the work that's being done, the purpose and the progress we've made to date, and some of the challenges that that we need to overcome to make this feature work in more scenarios.
You wanted to do that as a lightning talk or to condense it down into a lightning talk, that would be great.
Okay, yeah, that'll be possible.
Jack, is there an update on Loom?
Yes, Dan. So as Toby and Jason have mentioned, I'm working on right now to fetch my changes from back, I think, in March to get them reapplied to the latest branch and see if that would fix most of the dependency issue other than the Java start changes. I am working on compiling a list of methods that have been updated and require modification on our end to match the latest OpenJDK's code for Loom.
It might make sense to create a channel on the OpenJ9 Slack for this as well, and people can help follow along and discuss around that too.
Yeah, I can create a channel on OpenJ9 to track this.
Cheng, is there an update on Panama?
In terms of APCO, I'm keep working on the scoping with APCO, and pretty much finished all changes in terms of the primitive type. I think it's sort of the issues with pointer, argument pointer, and I keep working on move over to working on an argument on return, but there is a couple of unknown crash, multiple call when return from the primitive type. So now you have to figure out what's why. So I'm working with GAC to figure out why it crashed out there. Yeah, that's about it.
We'll skip over the monitoring strategy. Pete, is there any update on the conscious language initiatives?
No, I think we've left it with Shelley to see if Adoptium wants to change to use a different name sometime in the future.
Is there further updates on the Mac M1 work?
Nothing in the last week, no.
We do have a PR build running. We can compile now.
That's great news.
Not merged yet, but there.
Is there any other things that we should discuss this week? Thanks, everybody, and we'll have the next one of these next week.
Thanks.
Thanks.